There's a place in America where children disappear, not kidnapped, not missing, but gone from the world in a different way. Behind concrete walls and razor wire, teenagers as young as 13 vanish into a system that most Americans never see. A system that promises to fix broken kids. A system that sometimes breaks them even more. This is their story. But before we go inside those walls, you need to understand something. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. Every fact, every number, every situation you'll encounter is real, documented, proven, and that makes it more terrifying than any horror movie. Because unlike a movie, these kids can't leave when the credits roll. If you want to know the truth about what's happening to America's children behind closed doors, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling us what you think so far, because the story needs to be heard. Let's start with the question. What do you think happens when a teenager breaks the law? Maybe you picture a courtroom, a judge, a sentence. Then, what? Jail? Not exactly. Because in America, we don't send kids to jail. We send them somewhere else. Somewhere with a gentler name. Juvenile detention. It sounds almost safe, doesn't it? Almost like summer camp with stricter rules. That's what a lot of parents think when their child gets sent away. That's what the teenagers think too, at first. They imagine beds, meals, maybe some counseling. Time to think about what they did wrong. Then they go home. But some facilities aren't like that at all. Right now, across America, there are over 40,000 teenagers locked inside juvenile detention facilities. 40,000. That's enough kids to fill a small city. And while some of these places genuinely try to help, others have become something very different. Something darker. The question is, which ones? Here's where it gets interesting. The worst facilities don't advertise themselves. They don't have signs saying warning, terrible place. From the outside, they look like any other government building. Clean, official, safe. But inside? Inside is where the secrets live. Let me tell you about a boy named Marcus. That's not his real name. We're protecting his identity, but his story is completely real. Marcus was 15 when he made a mistake. He stole a car with some older kids. First offense. The judge decided Marcus needed discipline, structure, a wake-up call. So Marcus got sent to a juvenile facility in the South. His mother cried when they took him away, but she believed the system would help her son. She believed he'd come back better. Marcus walked through those doors on a Tuesday morning in spring. The facility looked okay. There were guards, they called them youth counselors. There were other boys his age. The building was old but clean enough. Marcus felt scared, sure, but he figured he could handle it. Just keep your head down, do your time, go home. That first night, Marcus learned something important. The facility had rules. Lots of rules. Don't talk during meals. Don't look at the guards wrong. Don't move without permission. Break a rule, and you got punished. But here's the thing Marcus didn't understand yet. The rules kept changing. What was okay today might get you in trouble tomorrow. It depended on which guard was working. It depended on their mood. Marcus was a fast learner, though. He watched the other boys. He noticed who'd been there longest had a certain look in their eyes. Empty. Like they'd stopped feeling things. Marcus promised himself he wouldn't become like that. He didn't know he wouldn't have a choice. By the third day, Marcus witnessed his first restraint. That's what they called it when guards pinned a boy to the ground. It happened during breakfast. A kid named Tyler asked for more food politely. Marcus remembered. Tyler said, please, and everything but the guard said no. Tyler asked why. That was his mistake. 3 guards rushed over. They slammed Tyler face down on the floor. One guard put his knee on Tyler's back. Another twisted his arms behind him. Tyler was screaming, begging them to stop. The other boys kept eating. Eyes down. Nobody helped. Nobody even looked. Marcus felt his heart pounding. He wanted to yell, to do something, but an older boy next to him whispered, don't. You'll be next. Tyler was dragged away. Marcus didn't see him for 3 days. When Tyler came back, he wouldn't talk about where he'd been, but Marcus noticed the bruises. Now, you might be thinking, surely someone knows about this. Surely there are inspections, oversight, adults checking on these kids. And you'd be right. There are inspections. Official reports. Government agencies responsible for monitoring these facilities. But here's what Marcus didn't know, what most people don't know. Some of these places have learned how to hide things. When inspectors come, the worst behaved guards take the day off. The kids get warned, tell the truth, and you'll pay for it later. The facility gets cleaned up, made presentable. Everyone smiles, everyone lies. And the inspectors? They see what they're allowed to see. They write reports saying everything looks fine. Then the inspectors leave, and the masks come off. Marcus started counting days. 1 week became 2. 2 became 4. He learned the survival rules fast. Don't cry, don't complain, don't trust anyone. He learned that making eye contact with the wrong person could mean violence. He learned that asking for help was pointless because there was nobody to help. But the strangest part, the part that confused Marcus most, was the silence. Nobody talked about what happened inside. Not really. When boys did get released, they went home and told their families. Nothing. Or they told half-truths. It was tough, but I'm okay. Why? Because some part of them felt ashamed. Another part didn't think anyone would believe them. And another part had simply learned that talking about bad things only makes them worse. So the secret stayed secret. Let's pause here and talk about something important. Not every kid in these facilities is innocent. Some teenagers commit serious crimes, violent crimes, and society has to respond somehow. These facilities exist for a reason. But and this is crucial, even kids who break the law have rights. They're still human beings. They're still children. And what's happening in America's hardest juvenile facilities isn't about punishment or rehabilitation. It's about something else entirely. Marcus had a cellmate named David, 14 years old. David had been in the facility for 7 months, which made him a veteran. David taught Marcus the real rules, the unwritten ones. Like which guards to avoid at all costs. Like how to hide food because sometimes meals got skipped as punishment. Like how to sleep light because night was when the worst things happen. Worst things? Marcus asked. Like what? David went quiet. Then he said, "You'll see." Marcus saw. Some nights, guards would come to cells and take boys away. Where? Nobody knew for sure. The boys would come back hours later, sometimes crying, sometimes silent. Marcus asked David about it once. David's answer was simple. Stop asking questions. But Marcus couldn't stop wondering. What kind of place was this? Where were the teachers, the counselors, the people supposed to help them change their lives? There were supposed to be classes, therapy sessions, programs. That's what the brochure said. That's what the judge promised. Instead, there were long hours of nothing. Sitting in cells, staring at walls. The boredom was crushing, suffocating. It made time move like thick mud. Days blurred together. Marcus started forgetting what his mother's voice sounded like. Then came the isolation rooms. Every facility had them, David explained. Different names. Isolation, segregation, the hole, timeout. But they all meant the same thing. A small room, usually concrete, sometimes without windows. You went in there alone. For hours. Sometimes days. What did you have to do to end up there? In some facilities, fighting got you isolated. In others, talking back. In Marcus's facility, the rules seemed random. Marcus saw a boy sent to isolation for crying too loud, another for refusing to eat. The guards decided who went and why. Marcus swore he'd never end up there. He lasted 6 weeks. His crime? Marcus asked to call his mother. It was allowed, technically. Kids got 1 phone call per week. But when Marcus asked, the guard was having a bad day. The guard said no. Marcus asked again respectfully, carefully, and explained he hadn't talked to his mom in 2 weeks. The guard smiled. Sounds like you're being disrespectful. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. No sir, just isolation. 3 days. The room was smaller than Marcus's bedroom closet at home. Concrete walls, concrete floor, a drain in the corner, no bed, just a mat, a tiny window near the ceiling, too high to see through. The door was solid metal with a slot for food. Then the door closed, and Marcus was alone. The first few hours weren't too bad. Marcus told himself he could handle this. It was just a room, just waiting. He'd done harder things. but hours turned into a day, then 2 days, and something started happening to Marcus's mind. In total darkness, they turned the lights off at night. He couldn't tell if his eyes were open or closed. Time stopped meaning anything. Was it morning? Afternoon? Night? He didn't know. He couldn't remember. His thoughts started looping, repeating, tangling. He began talking to himself, then answering himself. He heard sounds that weren't there. He saw shapes in the darkness. On the third day, when they finally let him out, Marcus couldn't walk straight. His legs had forgotten how. The light hurt his eyes, and something inside him had changed. Something had broken. David looked at him and nodded slowly. "Now you know," he said. Now Marcus knew. "This is the part where I need to tell you something that might surprise you." What happened to Marcus? It's not rare. It's not an isolated incident at one bad facility. It's happening right now, today. Detention centers across America. Thousands of kids experience isolation. Thousands witness violence. Thousands suffer in silence. And most of America has no idea. Before we continue, I need you to do something. Share this video. Comment below if you think this is something people need to know about. Because awareness is the first step toward change. And these kids need someone to notice. Marcus served 4 months total. When he finally got released, his mother picked him up. She hugged him tight, crying, saying how much she missed him. Marcus hugged her back, but he felt numb, disconnected. She asked if he was okay. He said yes. She asked what it was like inside. He said it was fine, tough, but fine. Why did Marcus lie? Because telling the truth meant reliving it. It meant admitting what happened. It meant facing the fact that the system designed to fix him had nearly destroyed him. So Marcus buried it. Like thousands of kids before him. Like thousands more after. But Marcus's story is just the beginning. Because there are things happening inside these facilities that are even worse than isolation. Things that, when you hear them, will make you wonder how this is possible in modern America. Things involving the adults who are supposed to protect these children. We'll get to that. But first, you need to understand how we got here. How America built a system that allows this to happen. How facilities that are supposed to rehabilitate became places of trauma. The answers go back further than you think. Back to decisions made decades ago. Back to a philosophy that said, if we're just tough enough on kids, we can scare them straight. But fear doesn't fix people, it breaks them. And America's hardest juvenile facilities have become very, very good at breaking children. There's a secret that America's juvenile detention system doesn't want you to know. It's not about the concrete walls or the isolation rooms. It's not even about the guards who abuse their power. It's something bigger, something that, once you see it, you can't unsee. The secret is this. The system was designed to fail certain kids from the start. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine 2 teenagers, both 15 years old. Both get caught with the same amount of marijuana. Same crime, same circumstances. First offense for both. One teenager is white, lives in the suburbs. His parents hire a lawyer. The judge gives him probation, maybe community service. He goes home that night, gets a second chance. His record might even get sealed when he turns 18. The other teenager is black, lives in the inner city. His family can't afford a lawyer, so he gets a public defender who's handling 30 other cases. This teenager gets sent to juvenile detention. 6 months, maybe more. Same crime, different outcomes. This isn't a story. This is statistics. This is documented fact. And it's happening in every state across America right now. Black teenagers are 5 times more likely to be locked up than white teenagers. 5 times. Latino kids, 3 times more likely, for the exact same offenses. But the system doesn't call this racism. The system doesn't call it anything. The system just keeps running, keeps taking certain kids and swallowing them whole. And nobody seems to notice the pattern. Except the kids notice. They always notice. Let me tell you about a girl named Jasmine, 16 years old. Got into a fight at school. Another girl had been bullying her for months. And one day, Jasmine finally fought back. In some schools, this means suspension. In Jasmine's school, in her neighborhood, it meant arrest, assault charges, juvenile court, detention. Jasmine's facility was different from Marcus's. This one was co-ed, boys and girls separated into different wings, but same building. The girls' side held about 40 teenagers. Some were there for fighting like Jasmine, others for shoplifting, drug possession, running away from home. One girl was there because she skipped school too many times. Think about that. Missing school got a child locked in a cage. Jasmine arrived scared but determined. She'd heard stories, sure, but she figured if she followed the rules, kept quiet, she'd be fine. 8 weeks, that's all. Then home. The first thing Jasmine noticed was the cold. The facility was always cold. The second thing was the smell, industrial cleaner trying to cover something worse underneath. The third thing was the screaming. A girl down the hall was having a breakdown, sobbing, yelling for her mother. Jasmine could hear guards shouting at her to be quiet. The girl wouldn't stop. Then came the sounds of a struggle. Then silence. Jasmine's cellmate, a 17-year-old named Rosa, didn't even look up. "You get used to it," Rosa said. But Jasmine didn't want to get used to it. The girls' wing operated on a strict schedule. Wake up at 6. Inspection at 6:15. Guards checked cells, searched belongings, made sure nothing was hidden. Breakfast at 7. Then, nothing. Hours of sitting. The facility was supposed to provide school, classes, activities, but most days there was nothing. Why? Staff shortages. Here's something the system doesn't advertise. Many juvenile facilities are desperately understaffed. They can't hire enough people, and the people they do hire, often they're not trained properly. Sometimes they're not qualified at all. They just need bodies to fill positions. This creates a dangerous situation. Overworked guards, frustrated kids, no programming, no structure, nothing to fill the endless hours. So the kids sit in their cells for days, weeks, months. Imagine being 16 and spending 23 hours a day in a small room. Imagine your brain, still developing, still growing, trapped in that environment. What do you think happens to that brain? Scientists have studied this. The research is clear. Isolation and sensory deprivation cause lasting damage to developing minds. Depression, anxiety, PTSD, sometimes permanent changes to brain structure, but the facilities keep using isolation anyway. Jasmine learned the social hierarchy quickly. There were girls who'd been there for months, some over a year. They ran things. They decided who sat where, who talked to who got respect. Cross them, and life got harder. There were also the vulnerable ones. Girls with mental health issues. Girls who'd been abused before arriving. Girls who couldn't defend themselves. These girls suffered most. Jasmine watched a girl named Sophie get tormented daily. Sophie was 14, tiny, had some kind of learning disability. The older girls mocked her, stole her food, pushed her around. Sophie reported it once. The guards did nothing, said she was being dramatic. So Sophie stopped reporting. She just endured it, until one night she tried to hurt herself. They found her in time, rushed her to medical. Jasmine never saw Sophie again, transferred somewhere else. Maybe a psychiatric facility, or maybe just a different wing. Nobody told them. Sophie just disappeared, and life continued like nothing happened. Now, here's where the story takes a darker turn. Because everything I've told you so far, the isolation, the violence, the neglect, that's not even the worst part. The worst part involves the adults. Remember how Marcus saw boys getting taken from their cells at night? Remember how they came back different, traumatized, silent? There's a reason for that. In 2024, a massive wave of lawsuits hit juvenile detention facilities across America. Hundreds of lawsuits, all alleging the same thing: sexual abuse by staff members. Not one facility, not one state, multiple facilities, multiple states. A pattern so widespread it couldn't be ignored anymore. The victims were boys and girls, some as young as 12. The perpetrators were guards, counselors, staff members, people hired to protect children. And the abuse had been happening for years, in some cases, decades. How did it go on so long? Because when kids reported abuse, they weren't believed. Because facilities covered it up to protect their reputation. Because the kids had criminal records, so who would trust them over a respected staff member? because the system protected itself instead of protecting children. Let me be very clear. I'm not going to describe the abuse in detail. This is not that kind of documentary. But you need to know it happened. You need to know it's still happening. You need to know that right now, today, there are teenagers in these facilities being hurt by the very people paid to keep them safe. And most of them have nobody to tell. Jasmine didn't experience this herself, but she heard things. Whispered conversations. Girls warning each other about certain guards. Don't be alone with him. If she volunteers to escort you somewhere, say no. The warnings passed between girls like survival tips. Because that's what they were. Survival. One day a new girl arrived. 13 years old. Looked even younger. Scared out of her mind. The older girls immediately took her aside, gave her the warnings, told her the rules. Not the official rules, the real ones. Trust nobody. Show no weakness. If something bad happens, decide carefully who you tell, because telling might make it worse. These are the lessons America's juvenile facilities teach. Not rehabilitation. Not growth. Survival. Jasmine started having nightmares. Even during the day, her mind felt foggy. She couldn't concentrate. Couldn't remember things clearly. Time felt strange. Some days raced by, others dragged endlessly. Rosa noticed. You're getting institutionalized, she said. What does that mean? Means this place is getting inside your head. Changing how you think. It happens to everyone eventually. Jasmine didn't want to believe it, but she felt it happening. The person she was before, the girl who loved art class, who wanted to be a veterinarian, who laughed with her little brother, that person was fading. Being replaced by someone harder, colder, someone who could survive this place. But at what cost? Here's something that might surprise you. About 70% of kids in juvenile detention have a diagnosable mental health condition. 70%. Most had these conditions before they arrived: depression, anxiety, PTSD from earlier trauma, behavioral disorders. These kids don't need detention. They need treatment, therapy, support. What do they get instead? Punishment. Isolation. More trauma piled on top of existing trauma. It's like taking someone with a broken leg and hitting them with a hammer, then wondering why they're not walking better. The system knows this. Studies have proven it repeatedly. Locking up troubled kids doesn't fix them. It makes them worse. Increases the likelihood they'll commit crimes later. Damages their ability to function in society. So why does America keep doing it? Money, contracts, politics, tough on crime policies that sound good in speeches, but destroy lives in reality. And maybe, just maybe, because the kids being destroyed are mostly poor, mostly black and brown, mostly from communities that don't have power to fight back. If this story is making you angry, good. Anger can fuel change. Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us what needs to happen. Because silence allows this to continue. Jasmine's 8 weeks turned into 12. Her release date kept getting pushed back. Why? Disciplinary issues, they said. Jasmine had talked back to a guard, had been defiant. Her crime? She asked why they canceled classes again. In juvenile detention, asking questions counts as defiance. Having opinions counts as disrespect. Being anything other than silent and obedient counts as a behavioral problem. And behavioral problems extend your sentence. So kids learn quickly: shut up. Disappear inside yourself. Become invisible. Jasmine wrote letters to her mother, told her she was okay, that she was learning her lesson, that she'd be home soon. She didn't mention the cold, the fear, the girl who tried to hurt herself, the warnings about guards. She definitely didn't mention how sometimes, late at night, she thought about just giving up. Her mother wrote back every week, encouraging letters. Proud of you. Stay strong. Can't wait to see you. Those letters kept Jasmine alive. But not every kid got letters. Some had no family. Some had families who'd given up on them. These kids had nothing to hold on to. No reason to stay strong. These kids worried Jasmine most. There was a boy Jasmine only saw him during rare moments when boys and girls crossed paths moving between buildings, who had the emptiest eyes she'd ever seen. 15, maybe 16. He moved like a ghost, never spoke, just existed. Jasmine asked Rosa about him. Marcus? Been here almost a year, waiting on trial for something. I don't know what, but he's been here too long. You can see it. See what? How it breaks people. The facility had broken Marcus. Not the boy from earlier in our story, different Marcus, same system. This Marcus had been swallowed by isolation, by violence, by the grinding machinery of a system that didn't care about him. Would he ever recover? Would he ever be a normal person again? Nobody knew. Nobody seemed to care. Here's a question worth asking. What happens to these kids when they get out? Some go home and try to rebuild their lives. They go back to school, reconnect with family, attempt to move forward. But they're carrying trauma now, invisible wounds that make everything harder. Others can't readjust. They've been institutionalized, taught to live by prison rules, to distrust everyone, to see the world as hostile. They struggle in normal society. Many end up back in the system. Juvenile detention becomes adult prison, becomes a lifetime of incarceration. The system calls this recidivism, a fancy word for failure. But whose failure is it, really? The kids? Or the system that traumatized them instead of helping them? Jasmine finally got her release date. 12 weeks total. She'd survived. As the day approached, she felt nothing. She thought she'd be excited, happy, relieved. Instead, she felt numb. The night before release, Rosa gave her advice. Don't talk about what happened here. People don't want to hear it. They think you deserved it because you broke the law. Just move on. Forget. Can you forget? Jasmine asked. Rosa's smile was sad. No, but you pretend. The next morning, they processed Jasmine out. Gave her back the clothes she'd arrived in. They didn't fit anymore. She'd lost weight. Gave her back the few belongings she'd brought. Walked her to the front entrance. Her mother was waiting, crying, hugging her tight. Jasmine hugged back, but she felt disconnected, like she was watching the scene happen to someone else. They drove home. Her mother talked the whole way, catching Jasmine up on everything she'd missed. Family news, neighborhood gossip. Jasmine's little brother had lost a tooth. Jasmine nodded, smiled when she was supposed to, said the right things, but inside, she was still in that cold facility, still hearing the screaming, still feeling the fear. Part of Jasmine had never left. Part of her never would. That night, safe in her own bed, Jasmine couldn't sleep. Too soft, too quiet. She ended up on the floor with a thin blanket, and that felt more normal. Her mother found her in the morning and didn't understand. How could she? Jasmine couldn't explain. The words didn't exist for what she'd experienced, for what had been done to her. So Jasmine said nothing. Like Marcus before her, like thousands of others, the secret stayed secret. But secrets have a way of surfacing. Eventually, the truth has a way of demanding to be heard. And across America, people are finally starting to listen. Lawsuits, investigations, news reports, advocates fighting for change. The question is, will it be enough? Will America finally fix this broken system? Or will we keep sacrificing children on the altar of tough on crime politics? The answer depends on whether people care, whether society decides these kids matter, whether we're willing to face the ugly truth about what we've built. Because right now, in facilities across this country, there are kids like Marcus and Jasmine and Sophie. Kids sitting in cold cells, kids being hurt, kids losing hope. They're waiting for someone to notice, someone to care, someone to help. Are you that someone? There's a moment that changes everything. For some kids, it's the day they enter detention. For others, it's something that happens inside. But for America, for all of us, the moment of change might be happening right now, because the walls are starting to crack. In 2023, something unprecedented happened. A juvenile facility in Louisiana was forced to shut down, not because of budget cuts, not because of policy changes, but because a federal judge ruled that the conditions inside were so horrific, so inhumane, that keeping it open violated the Constitution. Let that sink in. A facility designed for children was declared unconstitutional. What did investigators find inside? Everything we've talked about and worse. Kids locked in isolation for weeks. Routine beatings by staff. Denial of medical care. Teenagers sleeping on concrete floors. Rats. Mold. Sewage backups. One boy had his jaw broken during a restraint. He didn't see a doctor for 3 days. Another spent 37 days in isolation for a minor rule violation. When he came out, he couldn't speak in complete sentences. These weren't allegations. This was documented, proven, undeniable. And here's the terrifying part. Louisiana wasn't unique. It was just the one that got caught. Across America, investigations were uncovering similar conditions. Texas, Florida, California, Mississippi, New York. The list kept growing. In one facility, investigators found a boy who'd been pepper sprayed so many times he developed permanent respiratory problems. He was 14. In another, girls reported being strip searched by male guards. Routine procedure, the facility claimed. Trauma, the girls said. In another, a teenager with severe mental illness spent 6 months in isolation because the facility didn't have proper psychiatric care. 6 months, alone in a cell. His mind deteriorated so badly that when he was finally released, he couldn't recognize his own mother. The evidence was mounting. The system couldn't hide anymore. But here's where the story gets complicated. Because even with all this evidence, change moves slowly. Very slowly. Why? Let's follow the money. Juvenile detention is an industry. Facilities receive funding based on how many kids they house. More kids equals more money. Some facilities are privately run corporations making profit from locking up children. Think about the incentives there. If your business makes money by keeping beds full, are you motivated to rehabilitate kids quickly or to keep them longer? The system has built-in reasons to fail. There's also politics. Politicians campaign on being tough on crime. They promise to keep communities safe by locking up troublemakers. Sounds good in speeches, gets votes. But what happens to those troublemakers? What happens to Marcus and Jasmine and thousands like them? That part doesn't make it into campaign ads. So the cycle continues. Kids get locked up, get traumatized, get released, struggle to readjust, commit more crimes, get locked up again. The system calls this justice, but it looks more like a machine that eats children and produces damaged adults. However, and this is important, there are people fighting back. Let me tell you about Maria. Not a kid this time, an attorney. She dedicated her career to defending juveniles, and what she saw inside these facilities changed her. Maria started documenting everything, taking testimony from kids, gathering medical records, building cases. She filed lawsuit after lawsuit, challenging the conditions, demanding accountability. For years, she lost more than she won. Judges sided with the system. Facilities had good lawyers, deep pockets, government protection. Maria was one person with limited resources, but she didn't stop. Then in 2024, one of her cases broke through. A federal lawsuit against a detention facility in Mississippi. The evidence was overwhelming. Testimony from dozens of kids, medical records showing injuries, internal documents proving the facility knew about abuse and covered it up. The jury awarded damages, millions of dollars. More importantly, the judge ordered sweeping reforms, independent oversight, staff training, mental health services, limits on isolation. It was a victory, a real one. News spread. Other attorneys took notice. More lawsuits were filed. More facilities faced scrutiny. The wall of silence was crumbling. But victories in court don't immediately change reality on the ground. Right now, today, there are still kids in isolation cells, still guards abusing power, still facilities hiding the truth. Let me tell you what happened to Marcus, the first Marcus, from the beginning of our story. He was released after 4 months, went home, tried to go back to school, but he couldn't focus, couldn't sit still in classrooms. The structure felt suffocating, but without it, he felt lost. He started having panic attacks, nightmares every night. Loud noises made him flinch. He couldn't trust adults, couldn't connect with friends who hadn't been through what he'd been through. His mother didn't understand. She thought detention would scare him straight, teach him a lesson. Instead, it broke something inside him. Marcus started using drugs, just marijuana at first, trying to sleep, trying to quiet his mind. Then harder stuff. Anything to make the memories stop. Within a year, he was arrested again. Drug possession. Back to detention. This time, Marcus knew what to expect. He knew the rules, the dangers, the survival strategies. But knowing didn't make it easier, it made it worse. Because now Marcus understood. This was his life. The system had him, and it probably wouldn't let go. He was 17 years old. Is this justice? Is this rehabilitation? Is this protecting society? Or is this just cruelty dressed up in official language? Let's talk about what actually works. There are some facilities, not many, but some that take a different approach. They focus on treatment instead of punishment, therapy instead of isolation, education instead of empty hours. These facilities have smaller populations, better trained staff, actual program school classes, vocational training, counseling, family therapy. And here's the important part: they work. Kids who go through treatment-focused programs have much lower rates of reoffending. They finish school, get jobs, build stable lives. The research proves this. Repeatedly, conclusively, treatment works, punishment doesn't. So why doesn't America use what works? Because treatment costs more upfront, requires trained professionals, needs smaller staff-to-kid ratios, demands patience and expertise. Punishment is cheaper, easier. Just lock them up and forget about them. Except we can't forget, because these kids don't disappear. They come back to our communities, our schools, our streets. And what we've done to them inside those walls comes back with them. Jasmine, remember her? She's doing better than Marcus. Barely. She finished high school, which is something, but she struggles with depression, has trouble keeping jobs because authority figures trigger her anxiety. She's in therapy now. It helps. Slowly. Her therapist specializes in trauma, and she's helping Jasmine understand that what happened wasn't her fault. That's important, because Jasmine spent years thinking she deserved it. She broke the law after all, got in a fight, deserved punishment. But did she deserve to be traumatized? Did she deserve to develop PTSD? Did she deserve to have her adolescence stolen? Her therapist says no, the law says maybe. Society says nothing, because society isn't paying attention. Except some people are paying attention now. Activists, journalists, attorneys like Maria, formerly incarcerated youth speaking out, parents who lost their children to the system. They're telling stories, demanding investigations, pushing for reform. Some states are responding, passing laws limiting isolation, requiring better oversight, investing in alternatives to detention. It's not enough yet, but it's something. There are also kids who survived and came back to help others. Let me tell you about James. He spent 2 years in juvenile detention, experienced everything: the violence, the isolation, the abuse. Came out barely holding himself together. But James had something Marcus didn't: a mentor, a counselor who believed in him, who saw potential instead of just problems. This mentor helped James get into college, supported him through the nightmares and panic attacks, reminded him that his past didn't define his future. James graduated, got a degree in social work, and now he works with at-risk youth, trying to keep them out of the system that nearly destroyed him. He tells his story, not the sanitized version, the real one, because he knows these kids need to hear from someone who understands. James is proof that people can heal, that the system doesn't have to win. But healing is hard. It takes time, support, resources. And most kids don't get what James got. Most kids get left behind. Here's what keeps me up at night. Right now, in America, there's a 13-year-old kid making their first mistake. Maybe shoplifting, maybe fighting, maybe just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That kid is about to enter the system, about to face a choice they don't even know exists yet. Will they end up in a facility that helps them, or one that breaks them? Will they get a second chance, or will the system eat them alive? The answer depends on luck, geography, race, money, all the things that shouldn't matter but do. That kid could be anyone's child, anyone's little brother, anyone's neighbor. That kid is someone's baby. And America is about to decide what happens to them. We've built a system that takes troubled children and makes them worse. We've created facilities that traumatize instead of heal. We've allowed abuse to flourish in the darkness. But here's the thing about darkness: light exposes it. The truth is coming out. The stories are being told. The evidence is mounting. Now comes the hard part: the choice. America can keep doing what it's been doing. Keep locking kids up in brutal conditions. Keep traumatizing children in the name of justice. Keep producing broken adults and wondering why crime doesn't decrease. Or America can change. We can invest in treatment, build smaller, therapeutic facilities, train staff properly, provide mental health care, create real rehabilitation programs. We can remember that these are children, developing brains, redeemable lives, human beings who deserve dignity even when they make mistakes. We can choose compassion over cruelty. But change requires action. It requires people caring enough to demand better. It requires you. Because here's the truth: every person watching this has power. Maybe not much individually, but collectively. Collectively, we can move mountains. We can vote for politicians who prioritize treatment over punishment. We can support organizations fighting for reform. We can demand transparency and accountability. We can refuse to accept that this is just how things are. Marcus is 19 now, still in the system. Adult prison this time. His childhood mistake became a life sentence, not because of what he did, but because of what the system did to him. Jasmine is 20, working 2 jobs. Still in therapy, fighting every day to build a life from the wreckage of her adolescence. Sophie, the girl who tried to hurt herself, nobody knows where she is now. She disappeared into the system and never came back out. These are the stakes: lives, futures, the very souls of children. What happens next depends on whether we care enough to act. So I'm asking you directly: do you care? If the answer is yes, then don't let this be just another story you watched and forgot. Share this documentary. Talk about it. Make people uncomfortable with the truth. Demand that your local facilities allow independent inspections. Ask your representatives what they're doing about juvenile justice reform. Support organizations fighting for change. Donate if you can. Volunteer if you can't. And most importantly, never forget that behind every statistic is a child. A real person with dreams and fears and potential. Someone's baby locked in a cage, hoping someone will notice. Someone will care. Someone will help. Be that someone. The fight for juvenile justice reform is happening right now. If you believe children deserve better, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our investigative documentaries. Drop a comment below telling us what's one action you'll take after watching this. Share this video with someone who needs to see it, because silence allows the system to keep destroying lives. These kids can't fight alone. They need our voices. They need our action. They need us to care. What will you do?